let me pause asking questions here for about 5 or 10 minutes, and let me open it up, Diana. I don't know if you want to handle the mute, unmute. If we want to take maybe 3 or 4 questions from the audience. Eva, go ahead.
So first of all, I wanted really to thank you, Adam. It was very good. It already answered many of my questions and actually very inspiring as well. And actually answering a lot of my pain points as well, and kind of feeling me that I'm not the only one who makes lots of mistakes. But I actually wanted to ask you about this first pitch, because we are working in a deep tech area, and few things are quite complicated. So do I understand correctly that on first pitch deck, we should just mainly lay out benefits, like more like vision and what are the benefits for clients who don't know anything about technical details? Is there anything else that I should mention, like competition or potential market size, maybe? Like what are most important points that you mentioned in the first or the shorter version of the pitch?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's sort of a standard list of sort of 10 slides that I'm sure is going around. I'm sure Suhas told you, and it's just sort of a standard list of things that should be in a slide deck. Those are all ones I would agree with, right? So it's your general elevator statement, the team, especially in the early days, like why the team, why are you guys great at what you do, the market size, the maybe technology, the competition, sort of 10 slides is sort of the standard that you should have, and then maybe have a really big appendix. But that's kind of it that you need to have. So I'd definitely go with the sort of standard ones. The other key thing that I would add, though, so it's not quite your question, but something that I think is valuable for people to know, is one, I would also highly, highly recommend building out a list, once again, of all the investors you probably want to talk to. But then I would do something else beyond just having a list of like 100, 150, 200 investors. I would also then rank them by essentially like my top VCs that I really want to talk to, my sort of secondary VCs, and my third like VCs, like, you know, the third one being, if I got an investment from them, great, but I'm not that excited by them. But like your top tier ones, like I would be blown away and so ecstatic if I get them in my round. And then you start with your lowest, the ones you care about the least. So essentially you start with the people who are least likely, you least care about having involved as your first targets. The reason you do that is because your pitch is going to get better and better and better over time. So you basically hopefully start with the people who are your least good targets, start with them and pitch them. Your pitch will get better and better and better over time. And then you get to your next group, your second tier group, your pitch is going to be way better than the first group. And then if you're really lucky, you'll get an offer letter, or sorry, a term sheet from your tier 3 group. And so you go into meetings with tier 2 and you're like, I already have a term sheet. And so then they're going to be jumping real fast because there's like a ton of FOMO in VC land. So they're going to be jumping really fast. Oh, someone else has already given them a term sheet. Oh man. And then of course you get to your top tier group and you're like, I already have a term sheet, maybe 2 or 3 term sheets, and your pitch is on point. Now it's just a fear of missing out bloodbath, and they're all going to jump after investing in you.
Okay, great.
Managing the process.
Yeah.
Excellent. That was very insightful. Let's do one more. Darius, go ahead.
Thanks. Hi, Adam. Thanks a lot. It's super, super helpful. Apologies for the background noise. Walking my dog, he cannot stand my night shift. So the question is, let's say I'm a first-time founder trying to pitch multiple investors. And, you know, I have like a good idea, but, you know, like it's working or it doesn't work for certain reasons. And I eventually decide to sunset the idea. Now I have another idea. And now, you know, it's kind of, maybe it's a bit better, but I'm still, you know, like need to approach the same investors. Now the same founder coming to the same investors. How bad or how good is that?
I don't think it's necessarily bad or good. In fact, you could argue it's maybe even a good thing. And what I mean by that is, especially if you've like earned insights from your past company or past idea, so things you've learned kind of the hard way, right? You're like, I've learned all these things. Here are the mistakes I made, and here's why I'm going to do it better this time. It actually helps your personal story, which early on is part of the whole point, right? Theoretically, everyone on this call has some personal story about why they have some insight into the market that is going to make their company a big success. So if you failed for the first time and you're doing something in that same sort of market or adjacent to that market, you now suddenly have even more earned insight. So you can go back to that VC and be like, hey, I learned all these things. Here's what I learned, and here's why I'm doing this better this time around. I've seen that happen a ton of times. It's something that I've done. I mean, in fact, my own company, Levy, were a bit of a spin-off of my previous company. And there was a ton of earned insights we got from that I think and hope we are doing our very best to apply to what Levy's doing for our customers and make it so much more delightful and better for them this time around. That will make us a larger and more successful company with a better outcome.
All right, thank you.
Excellent. Let me just get one or two questions from the chat window. So Adam, what's your opinion on one-pagers, having those as part of your investor collateral?
I think one-pagers are great. It's just a different medium and way to kind of impart information. So in my last company, Abstract Ops, we didn't have a pitch deck at all. We actually had a Notion document. There's a decent argument, right? I mean, Amazon famously does this in sort of their memos that they do. They don't do any presentations. It's a memo. Arguably, being forced to write a memo is in fact more difficult and more challenging than just making a presentation, because of course, presentation, once again, the way I said to do it, it's a lot of images. It's very little text. It's a lot of images. It's easier in some ways to do that than it is to make a really short, succinct, to the point, and logically flowing memo. So I think a memo is great. A one-pager is great, just as another additional thing to have. Because in the end, you have to remember, what are VCs going to do? So if they like you and they want to talk again, what does that usually mean? So think about what's happening on their side. Well, here's what it means. They're going to go write up a short piece of information about you in their own words and go tell the rest of their team to get that team excited. Because if you're going to get investment from them, they have to convince their whole team about you. Now, once again, VCs, like all of us, are sort of lazy. So do they really want to rewrite that in their own words? Or if they can just copy and paste from what you wrote with a few tweaks of their own, what are they going to do? What are all of us going to do? They're going to take your own words, tweak it a little bit, and then send that to their team. So I would do everything I can to make it as easy as possible for them to do their job well, and do it, of course, in your favor as I could.
Yeah. Yeah. In many ways, it's easier to write a 10-slide deck than a one-pager or a quick Notion doc, right? There's the famous quote, I would have written you a shorter letter, but I ran out of time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it's a great quote, and it's true. And once again, to the point though, of VC stuff, they might see your presentation, but they write memos. So they're writing memos internally. They're not creating a new presentation about you. They're writing a memo to their team. And so if you can make it easy for them to write that memo and easier for them to do it in a way that is in your favor, that's a win. And by the same thing goes for sales, right? When you're doing sales calls with customers, you want to make it as easy for them to tell the rest of their team, especially if you need a lot of people to sign off on it, as easy as possible for them to tell their team, this is why I want this product. Here's the ROI, here's the cost, and what I'm, the time frame to invest, all the other things. It's not that different than what information you need to give to venture capitalists. Absolutely.
So whatever we can do to make their job easier, help them communicate what our company does in the format that they would like, would be ideal. Okay.
And by the way, sorry, I'll add one more thing there, which is
sure. This
also goes to making sure that the emails that you send as a follow-up are short and to the point. So how many, raise your hand here if you enjoy, when you see a long email that's many paragraphs, are you going to open that email right away? Or are you going to say, oh, that's way too long, I'm going to wait till later to read it? I wait till later. If I see an email that's really long, like, I don't have time to read that right now. I'll try to come back to it later. Guess what? You forget. There's a million other emails. You might not come back to it till later. And if you do you really want to read over a bunch of bullet points and go point by point to reply? Probably not. So I try to keep my emails, this is for sales, for fundraising, as short and to the point as possible, so that it's actually going to get read.
Right. Absolutely. You don't have to scroll on your iPhone, better.